Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and this is episode 335. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Stacy. That is at StacyPen89 on Twitter. Stacy, how are you doing on this lovely Monday evening?
Victory Monday for both of us. So, nice day outside. Got the fall colors. Got some wins. So,
Yeah, can't complain about that.
not 48-20 over the Dolphins though. So, it's
it's
extra Victory Monday for you.
Yeah, we call that light work. But before we get started, I do have to make a few announcements. The first being that the Strickland has an Instagram. Check that out. That is at thestrick.land on Instagram, posting all kinds of new content on there. The Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are and you've not done so already, please hit like and then subscribe to the channel. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise. You can buy that on our website. That is at www.thestrick.land. There's a link that will take you to the store, and there you can buy all kinds of things: t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it. We've got it. Again, you can find that on our website. And then the Strickland has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to the Strickland mailbag, which is hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, although it will no longer be the mailbag. It is getting a rebrand. So be on the lookout for that announcement this week. You also get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. And now you get access to Strictly NFL, our NFL podcast that is being hosted by Constantine and Jeffrey Rasmussen, who you may be familiar with on Twitter as at Frank Barrett119, who does a bunch of social stuff for us. And guess what? There are more tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier that's going with a variety of additional benefits like listening to pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. And none of this would be possible without BetOnline. Football is back, and BetOnline is your number one information source for all your sports wagering info with all the up-to-the-minute stats, news, scores, and matchup breakdowns. Get the latest game odds, spreads, and totals from the NFL and college football at your fingertips with BetOnline's real-time updates on statistics, news, and odds. From week one all the way to the college football playoff and Super Bowl, BetOnline gives you access to the best football promotions and contests available anywhere online. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. So things happened in the NBA over the last few days. Fortunately, we're able to record the pod last Friday after the Damian Lillard trade. But the other shoe has dropped. Jrue Holiday, who was sent out in the Damian Lillard trade to Portland, is now being rerouted to Boston for Malcolm Brogdon's expiring contract, sixth man of the year. That was so fucking valuable that they traded him out after one season in Boston after successfully torpedoing the actual sixth man of the year's candidacy. And Robert Williams, but more importantly for them anyway, 2 first-round picks, a 2024 that is actually from Golden State. It's 1-4 protected, and an unprotected 2029 Boston Celtics first-round pick. I will. This is a Knicks podcast, so we can just start with this part of it. And you can read if you're watching on the YouTube. You can see what I have under my handle here, where I said "not trading for Jrue appreciator," because I thought some of the reaction to the Knicks. Well, don't forget the Knicks, because it's not just the Knicks, right? So Boston trade for him. There were a lot of teams that are apparently in for Jrue. I want to make a few statements. Like, the first is not everything needs to be about the Knicks. Like, things happen in the NBA. It's a dynamic marketplace. There are 30 teams. Not every single thing needs to be a Knicks-centric thing. Oh, why didn't the Knicks trade for Jrue? Like, at what point this offseason did anybody sit there thinking to themselves, like, you know what would be perfect to add to this team? Jrue fucking Holiday. Nobody thought this until you got traded for Damian Lillard, by the way. And you could say, oh, well, he's never on the market. Okay. If I told you that the one thing that we were going to trade for after signing DiVincenzo, by the way, the one thing we were going to trade for was a 6'3" combo guard who's a really good point of attack defender and a really good regular season player who consistently pisses and shits himself offensively in the playoffs, you would have fucking called me an idiot, and you would have been right. And if I furthermore told you this player was 33 years old, had talked about potentially retiring at the end of his contract, which could be up to 2 years, and he has a player option for that second year, so he could just exit that contract now if he wants, or we would have to pay him a new brand spanking new salary, which will probably be $35 million a year plus. If I told you that was the player the Knicks desperately needed to trade for, and they had to match this deal, okay? So let's try and do a comparative deal, right? So that would be like RJ Barrett, 2 first-round picks of some kind, but both unprotected. Or I mean, the first one is the Golden State one is 1 to 4 protected, but like, okay, so maybe you can do a 1 to 4 protection on one of our picks this year, and then another future unprotected pick in 2029. We'll see how that and then to make the salaries work, you probably have to do RJ Barrett and Fournier. Now, there'll be plenty of people that would say, well, I don't really care about RJ Barrett that much. Okay. Fine. But like, to me, my main hesitation with this idea that the Knicks should have even like been a player in this trade, at least a serious player, is I think this team is undersized as is, and I'm okay with that to an extent because I think you had to make some tough choices. And I still like, I like that DiVincenzo can rebound and blah, blah, blah. So like, I'm okay with that for now. If you told me that we were going to get even smaller by adding another guard, could you convince me this team would be better off in the regular season in that scenario? Sure. I believe it. Do I think that it makes us a contender? No. I don't think trading for Jrue Holiday at a price of RJ Barrett, 2 unprotected picks of some kind, or very, very lightly protected in one of them. And like, I just don't see that as being a viable.
I don't even think that would be enough, right? I mean, if you look at what Boston sent, we probably would have had to give up Mitch too. I mean, I don't know if Robert Williams was like a sticking point, but they also got a big on, I think, Mitch's level. If you ask the media, 10 times as good as Mitch, but I don't know that RJ would have been enough.
Yeah, I mean, let's just underplay the outgoing package, right? So let's just say it's what I suggested. Like, does that make us closer to being a contender? I don't. Maybe you could say we're closer. I don't think it makes us a contender. I also think now we're already kind of pushing the limits of the first apron, second apron, all that stuff. Now you're going to add more salary to the team long term because if you want to keep Jrue, you're going to have to pay him. And he has a shit ton of leverage now, by the way, because you gave up 2 firsts to get the fucking guy. And then on top of that, he's 33. Like, if he's not opening up a title window for you now, or you don't think he materially makes you a contender, why are you doing this trade? And then the final part of it is, like, okay, yeah, you can be like, well, you still have pieces left over to make trades. Do you know what it might cost to get, let's just say it, Joel Embiid, right? The guy that a lot of people are saying, oh, if he's on the market, the Knicks need to go get him. Like, okay, well then if the Knicks need to go get the fucking guy whenever he's at the market, and guess what? Guess what getting Jrue Holiday to Boston does? I will be shocked if in a year's time Joel Embiid is still on the fucking Sixers. Like, that window for that team is over. It's done. That entire team is done. He's going to be on the market next summer. Do you think it's easier to potentially acquire him with all of your motherload of assets? And I'm not talking about the protected picks. We're not talking about that. Like, we understand. Like, I think me and you and most people understand the protected picks. Yeah, you can use them to acquire role players and stuff like that. They're not going to move the needle in a star trade. But in this scenario where if we acquired Jrue, we would have been tapping into our own pile of picks. And that makes it harder to trade for a guy like Joel Embiid, which is a guy, whether I don't necessarily totally agree with this, but at least I see the vision of like, okay, that guy, I could see a world where he opens up a title window for you. Okay, I could see that. Jrue Holiday is not opening up shit for us. Like, I just don't understand it. I don't think everything that happens in the NBA needs to be about the Knicks. And I don't care that the Celtics got better. Guess what? Like, again, it's a dynamic marketplace. You can't stop other teams from getting better all the time. If the Knicks were just only focused on, like, well, we can't let this team get better, we can't let that team get better. Like, what does that do? That's not a way that is not a way to approach roster construction. And it's also not a way to make long-term plans. And the final part of it is, like, I just want to say this, the amount of Knicks fans who, like, must have fucking loved Isaiah Thomas's regime is amazing to me. Because apparently anybody that goes in the market that we don't trade for is, oh my God, what is Leon Rose doing? What is the plan? Like, look, Ian Begley does great work, obviously, for SNY. He had this piece about after that trade where it was like, look, the goal isn't to just win 49, 50 games and compete and make the playoffs and be a good team. Like, I'm sorry. How many contenders are there in the league? So is it that every other fucking team that's not a contender, they're just wasting their time and they're in purgatory and there's no point to anything they're doing?
If you're not tanking, then yes, that's a waste of time. There is no value to anything else.
Right. And maybe like I know there are people that actually believe this, right? Like that is how they view roster construction is like it all has to come from the draft. And then only when you get to like X point are you allowed to then make trades and go out and acquire players.
Or sign like a veteran. I mean, it's crazy how many people think you signed Dante DiVincenzo that's playing to win now. You're a rebuilding team. It's just like, come on, dude. Like, they made the second round. Are they not allowed to sign like a solid player with good experience who can shoot and defend for a cheap contract?
This is something that I think is like so in the NBA for the longest time, right? For the longest time, the general consensus is always the general consensus has been, right, that like you need stars, right? And you still do. And it's like, yeah, you can improve this and that and this thing, but like you ultimately need to go get a star. To a certain extent, I still think that's true. But what I don't think people are giving enough credence to, and I think this is like easier to understand in football, where you have like your linebacking unit, your secondary, your defensive line, offensive line, you have your various different position groups, where it's like it's easier to understand, like, okay, yes, our defensive line suck, our linebackers suck, and our secondary suck. I understand we can't address all of that this summer, but it's like I see that our front office has made moves to like, oh, they drafted a cornerback in the first round, they went out and signed a safety, they went out and got another safety. Like you can kind of see, okay, they're addressing those needs. And like I think people just look at Dante DiVincenzo and are like, oh, it's just Dante DiVincenzo, who cares? And it's like, man, if you actually watch, like, look at what were the Knicks' weakest areas last year as a team, right? They did not have enough good perimeter defenders, or just good enough defenders in general in the rotation. They only finished 19th in defensive rating. And yes, it ticked up in the playoffs, which is good to see, but the regular season does still matter. And having another guy capable of playing perimeter defense, switching, playing multiple positions, whatever, is valuable. The other thing the Knicks were not good at, and it's funny, I forgot who, it might have been Chris Persianen who tweeted this out today. Shout out Chris, doing the Lord's work at Media Day. But he mentioned, I think he said that the goal last year was to finish top 10 in three-point rate and three-point percentage. They did do three-point rate. They did not do three-point percentage. And so I'm like, okay, so Dante DiVincenzo gives you another good shooter. So if you just look at the Knicks' two biggest weaknesses as a team last year, he is a player who at least incrementally can help you address those things. Does that make you a championship contender? No. But like, if you
cost you $11 million,
right? And you can't just become a championship contender. You have to take your time. It doesn't matter what path you choose, by the way. It does not matter what you do. You can tank. You can rip it to the studs and build through the draft, and you can go out and make big trades. And it's going to take time. And if you want to do it stupidly, like people are like, why hasn't Leon made a big trade yet? You want to know why Leon hasn't made a big trade yet? You want to see how a team that does what the Knicks are trying to do in a stupid way, you want to know what they end up like? The fucking Bulls? Chicago Bulls. Yeah, that's what they end up like. The Chicago fucking Bulls. And that is why you don't just immediately, we've got to do it now. You got to do it now. And the Knicks have bought themselves
I think what
a
people
buffer.
are advocating is just tank.
Right, but I think there's two sides of it. There's a side that's like, why are we doing this thing? We should have tanked and blown it up and drafted these guys. And like, look,
I actually think
can
that's what they wanted to do before Randall blew up.
yeah,
right?
which like I don't totally. If it was like my call, right? If I was Leon Rose, like I probably would have. I think that's what he wanted to do initially, but then Randall makes. I'm like, I probably would have just done it anyway, right? I would have dumped Randall that first summer for like whatever I could get and
After
moved
the
on.
COVID season?
No,
After-
like when he first took over, like so before the COVID.
Before
season.
he actually, so like
Yeah.
when he drafted OB.
Yeah, I would have just dumped him then and moved on. But like, okay, they didn't do that. Get the fuck over it, okay? And then evaluate them on how they are executing their plan. So you can tell me, I don't like this plan. This is not the best plan. I know I have all the best plans. You know, like you're gonna build a wall.
That's
You can
the
tell
best
me all
word.
that. Yeah, you can tell me all that, and that's fine. But like, you have to judge their execution of their plan. Have they been perfect? No, absolutely not. But if I told you 3 years ago the Knicks would have a rotation where the oldest guy was 28 years old, had made 2 All-NBA teams and 2 All-Star teams, they signed a guard who's basically an All-Star level player for a below market value deal, okay? And then they would also have they went out and traded a late first for a rotation wing. They signed a combo guard in free agency for $11 million. And then the rest of the rotation is 3 fucking guys that you drafted, right? Quickly, or 4. RJ, Quickly, Grimes, and Mitch. If I told you all that, right? And then I told you, again, most of this team is either 26 or younger, and they had won 47 games in the 3rd season, made the playoffs twice in 3 years, and they had won a playoff series and taken the eventual Eastern Conference champion to 6 games in the second round. There is not a single fucking soul that would have been like, no, this is awful. This is terrible. I can't believe I would not sign up for that now. Every fucking Knicks fan would have signed up for that. And if I had also told you, guess what? We have all of our picks moving forward. And not just that, we have extra second round picks. We've got even 4 protected first round picks from other teams coming in. There is not a single person, not a single Knicks fan would have looked you in the face and been like, no, I'm out. I'm not doing that. Like, this is insane. And I want to, like, the last thing I want to say is, like, I just, like, again, I think Begley does great work, but, like, I just thought it was such a weird framing of the situation where it's like, you know, he's got to make a move. Like, it's like, well, the point isn't just to win 49, 50 games. You got to be a contender and you got to win a championship. It's like, okay, do you think was Jrue Holiday making us a contender? And if not, who the fuck cares what Boston did to get him? That's irrelevant to the Knicks. That should not inform the Knicks' decision-making. Did you care that, like, you know what? The Knicks could have easily gotten Damian Lillard this summer. They could have. We know this looking at what was eventually given to Portland. The Knicks could have acquired Damian Lillard
What
this
do you
summer.
think a similar offer would have looked like?
So what, 3 unprotected picks of the Knicks and
we didn't have a piece, like, would Randall be the comparable piece to Jrue, or?
Well, I mean, they traded Jrue, right? So, like, the 3 picks.
So if we do 3 picks, you're saying 3 picks includes the value of Jrue.
Yeah.
True.
Like, okay, but we could have done these things. Would that have made if the Knicks did RJ, Fournier, whatever other filler needed to go out, and 3 unprotected picks for Damian Lillard, would you be like, oh yeah, this team is now fucking power in the East? Like, I wouldn't. I'd be like, I don't understand this roster, and I think we got worse, and I think we now have less capabilities of improving the roster around these major pieces that we've assembled.
I think if you replaced, I think the problem for me is that Jrue would probably not have just been a 1-for-1 swap with RJ in the lineup. Forget the picks. I'm talking about in our actual minutes. If you told me that all the RJ minutes were replaced by Jrue Holiday and Quentin Grimes would still be the starting shooting guard, or he would still start, and Hart would come off the bench, I'd be fine with that. I think the problem would be that Hart would start next to Jrue. But if we had, maybe if we had a different coach is the wrong kind of conversation. But if you knew that it would just be, in terms of minutes in our rotation, just basically a 1-for-1 swap with Jrue for RJ, would that have changed your mind?
No, like I
you still think they're still worse.
I just don't like the roster construction. Like, I think there are diminishing returns of, like, I actually think we're almost at the point where it's like, I'm fine with having Brunson, Quickly, DiVincenzo, Hart, right? I'm fine with that. And I think the cost of acquiring those 4 players, right? So it's one guy we drafted in the late first, one guy we traded a late first for, 2 guys we signed in free agency using different mechanisms, whatever. Like, the cost of acquiring that talent makes sense to me. Now, if I go get Jrue, he's taking minutes away from Grimes and he's taking minutes away from Quickly, 100%, because he's going to start. Like, you don't get Jrue Holiday and be like, guess what, buddy? You're going to be the 6th man this year. Like, that's not happening.
No,
That's not happening.
what if he started next to Grimes and Brunson? Like, what if he was just a 1-for-1 replacement of RJ? That's different, right? Because RJ was
No,
getting.
I think it's very different because Holiday will not
If your
just start
argument is
games.
Tibbs wouldn't do that, that's fine. But I'm saying
No.
in a world where
My argument is Holiday is going to start and end games regardless of who the coach is. Holiday is like a player that is going to start and close games. Now, if that player, like we talked about Paul George earlier in the summer, Paul George would take minutes from those guys too. But I think a healthy version of Paul George actually opens up a title window for this team.
But isn't
like
RJ
I think that makes
already
us an
taking
actual
minutes
contender.
from those guys?
I think Tibbs has shown he's much more willing to have RJ sit at the end of a game than he
Well,
ever would.
like what I'm saying is, the problem for me is, are we closing games with Grimes or with Brunson, Hart, Holiday?
Brunson, Hart, Holiday.
Yeah, that's the issue. If we're not doing that, if Grimes is still treated as the starter over, it's really a Grimes Hart question to me. And how much does Tibbs believe that Hart is like way more physical or whatever and man ball than Grimes, and would this push him to do that since Holiday's technically guard? If it's not, if we're still giving Grimes 30 minutes a game, if Quickly's playing basically the same role, you're basically just swapping RJ's minutes for Holiday's. And I don't think you need to give Holiday many more minutes than that. So that's, in that situation, I think the team would be better. Now, you've compromised your flexibility, you've punted on RJ's upside, you've given up picks. So, but do I think they would have been a better team next year? That's where I think. Now, I think it might be moot because Tibbs probably would have just gone with Hart instead of Grimes and made some bullshit excuse about physicality or whatever. But I do think if a 1-for-1 swap in the Knicks rotation of RJ for Holiday, I think would be an upgrade, right? I don't think you would disagree with that.
No, it's an upgrade. The point is he's 33. So like, if you're making an upgrade like this, to me it has to be, you don't have time anymore to be like, well, we're gonna wait to get Embiid before. Like, no, that guy has to make you a contender, or at least you have to believe that guy makes you a contender right away. Now, like if you believe that, I'm not saying you do, but if you believe that, then you should be fine. Like then I understand being like, I would have done this trade. I totally get that. Then I don't agree with it, but like if that's what you think, okay, fine, fair enough. So if the Knicks believed Jrue Holiday made them a contender, they should have gone out and made the deal happen. I believe that. But I'm assuming that their view was Jrue does not make us a contender. He does not open up a championship ceiling for us. And personally, I would agree with that evaluation. I don't think it does. And so I guess ultimately what I kind of, I don't understand the criticism. So I'm like, do you believe that Jrue Holiday makes you a contender? Not you, but broadly to people that are like who became upset about this yesterday or whatever. And it was like, the other fucking annoying thing about this is like this news broke an hour before the 1:00 slate of NFL games. And I'm like, can you guys just like shut the fuck up about the NBA for 5 seconds and definitely shut the fuck up about Leon Rose and the Knicks? They're like, just go watch NFL. It's beautiful outside. Go to like a fucking beer garden or something. Have a good time. Just stop.
Touch some something green that comes out of the ground. I don't know.
Cement. Touch some cement.
Touch some ass. No,
yes.
It rhymes with it, but
yeah. But I just, to me, like if you don't believe that a guy at that age, given the contractual situation that he would also be putting you in, if he does not open up an immediate kind of, or like, because we've gotten to the point where I don't think we're a contender, but we're like kind of below that level. If you make an aggressive move like that and it doesn't push you to a higher level, then it was a waste of time, especially given the age he's at. If he was 28, maybe that's a different story, right? If he's like 27, 28, then you're like, okay, we still have a few years we just need to get this guy in now because the value for him is just, we'll never get this chance again, right? Okay, fine. That's different. But when you're 33, you have to believe that guy that's coming in is going to immediately change your ceiling as a team. And I just don't think Jrue Holiday does that. So I was just like always kind of neutral to the move. I mean, is there a price I would have done it? Probably. But like that price was never going to happen, especially based on, now we know what they got. So
Price is wrong, Bob.
yeah. Anyway, I mean, I don't know. I just thought the Jrue Holiday, the reaction to like, especially just
that's
like
just
I get like the reaction from like Boston fans or Portland fans or Bucks fans or whoever, right? But like I just don't understand how this move, a Jrue Holiday trade or a Damian Lillard trade, has anything to do with the Knicks. Like those moves just didn't make sense for us.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of desensitize yourself, de-Vincentize yourself to the kind of conversation. It's all stupid. The same people that are like, "Why didn't we trade for Jrue?" Are like, "Why did we trade for Josh Hart?" Or "Why did we do this shit?" It's just he's a name. That's what they don't really know much about basketball or what he does. Um, where I think is, I think if we had a different coach, I would have been more in favor of it. I think where I disagree is like, I think it does make us a contender because everyone's a fucking contender. There's nobody. Dame and Giannis are gonna be close to unguardable. That is also an old team. Middleton's health has not been reliable. Um, you know, if they're going to, Giannis is going to be tasked with a lot on defense, right? We're going to see. I think the bet they're making is that Giannis and Brook, and to a lesser extent, Middleton and some of their other wings and even like, by the way, for Knicks fans, Bobby Portis has turned into a really effective defender. So I don't want to shortchange their other guys either, but they're making the bet that Jrue's impact was probably a little bit overstated. If you believe that's the case, which is the bet Milwaukee's making to say that we're just a fucking juggernaut, then you shouldn't be crying that the Knicks didn't get him. Because his most valuable attribute maybe didn't have that much value for that team. But I do think that, look, I think it's just a weird situation that like the whole league is wide open. There's, Boston is super talented now. But Mitchell Robinson, like if we play them in a 7-game series, I kid you not, I was saying this, he's going to average 15 rebounds a game. Like who is boxing, who is putting a body on him? Then Boston's defense is too good for me to say that Julius Randle, of all people, is going to solve them right in the playoffs. But they don't have anyone who can man up on him. KP is his own tricky thing, and the fear is he keeps trying to go over KP, and KP's like, nope. And he's like, thank you, KP. May I have another? Thank you, KP. May I? But that's the kind of thing Randall would do, but he can body the shit out of him. We saw it when KP was on the Knicks. I don't like, there is, even now, there are teams that have more top to bottom talent. There isn't a juggernaut. So in that sense, something that makes the Knicks better, what Jrue would have added is another good point of attack defender, which I think is important next to Jrue, next to Jalen. Another facilitator. I think I've debated the most with other on the strict court with people is just how good of a facilitator it, because the Knicks will, one of their needs in addition to kind of the shooting is a facilitator. I think DiVincenzo is that connective piece. That's kind of an under talked part of this. He averaged 3.5 assists to 1.6 turnovers per game last year, despite being somebody who doesn't really do a whole lot with the ball in his hands. They need more people like that. But there's just no reason to cry about it given the cost, right? You're getting rid of RJ Barrett. Whatever your thoughts on him, he's 20. He's 10 years younger than Jrue. He is. I think his career playoff stats on offense are probably better than Jrue's right now. He's bigger, and he gives you we're gonna need him to play the four sometimes, because I think Hart is probably the guy who's gonna get more of those minutes, but there's gonna be times where it's like Naz Reid or something, and I'm not saying Barrett is the best option against Naz Reid, but or Naz Reid mostly plays the 5, but Portis or someone like that, right? When we're going with backups, RJ is probably going to be the better option. So he gives you that flexibility, and you're betting that this guy is going to improve. And it's not the whole thing that we have to embrace being a rebuilding team. part of being racing, being a rebuilding team is saying that instead of trading for Jrue Holiday, let's continue to develop RJ. Let's continue to bank on the fact that this is the guy who's been molded as a pro since he was a child. That is just it was the he was really what the his just the kind of persona and the aura, I guess, if you want to call it that, that RJ had when he was drafted in third, a pro's pro, and a team that needed that kind of injection. That's important, and it has been a bumpy ride on the court, but that's what you're betting on. So like, there's a lot of just cognitive dissonance coming from the people that are just like, I want to be mad, and I think it's just also restlessness. Like the season didn't, the season was just a roller coaster of emotions. It ended a certain way, and we've had to wait for a long time. And I think we just need basketball to come back, to be honest.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I guess like forgetting the Knicks of it all. Okay, well, let's just start with this. Do you feel okay? So Boston basically has like 6 dudes now, plus Peyton Pritchard and like Sam Hauser and who's the guy they drafted? Jordan Walsh, Kobe Walsh, something like that.
Jordan Walsh.
Yeah, and he was either Jordan or Kobe.
And they got Wenyan Gabriel.
Yeah, huge acquisition. I think they also have our boy Luke Cornett. Once a Nick, always a Nick. Do you feel this team is now better equipped to come out of the East and win a championship as constructed versus what they were kind of at the end of last season and really even at the end of 2022?
No, not really. But I also think they were constructed last year to make it out. Miami shot 1,000,000% from 3. That was the flukiest shit ever. Like, I'm sorry, that's gonna sound like sour grapes because I'm a Knicks fan. I'm not even saying the Knicks were the best team. Boston, Milwaukee were the best teams. Philadelphia was better than the Heat. Like, we can just admit it now. Like, it was a fun story. Jimmy Butler, whatever. Woo, like Disney movie shit. Hey, they're not the best team. Boston was built for it. They went a way that they felt they needed to. They wanted to move Grant Williams. I don't think the roster construction was an issue last year. They moved Grant Williams. I know Porzingis is his whole bag of worms. I'm not even saying this as I've gotten over everything. I was not a fan of the guy, to say the least, after the trade. I've gotten over that. He's a talented player. He's one of the few real stretch 4 or 5s, whatever you want to call it. He's improved things like rebounding. I think I'm higher on his rim protection than you are. It's probably somewhere between where you think it is and where it was in New York. Where, I mean, we'll both agree he was an elite rim protector in New York, right? I don't think you would disagree with that, right?
Porzingis?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely an elite rim protector. I think he still is.
Yeah, so I mean, they added talent. It's just they're making the bet that and like this is the thing, like every kind of roster construction is given what's available to you, and this is what gets overshadowed a lot. This is why I don't want to. I know Prez is working an article about this, but why the Knicks are kind of an analytically minded front office. It's that given the strategies available to you, where do you attack given where the league is? And what they're betting on, they're making a bet. And the bet is that kind of perimeter defense, they basically subbed in Jrue Holiday for Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon, right? So they're saying that we'll have the same level of perimeter defense. I think they are slightly betting that Jrue will be somewhat more of an. I know you're very down on Jrue in the playoffs. I think he can at least, if he can at least set up some sets, run some offense to not force Jason Tatum to do that all the time, or put all the decisions in Jason Tatum's hand. I think Jason Tatum is a good decision maker. Basically, limit decisions as much as possible from Jaylen Brown, given his limitations. I think Jaylen Brown has a good feel. It's just he can't go left. Those kind of things. It limits his effectiveness. So you add another ball handler there, which they have needed. They're betting that impact will matter more than a center who was unavailable, right? They're betting that the fact that I don't think they're paying attention to the Knicks, to be honest. I think that if they were, if they were paying attention to the Knicks, they would not want to put that front line up against Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson, but they are. They're betting, but you can say they should be paying attention to Bam. And as much as I derided the Heat's playoff run, you can bet they are paying attention to Bam. They're betting that, Bam and whoever else on the Heat or Giannis and Brook, they might get their way inside. But what the perimeter defense can do and just how effective they should be being able to go 5 out. Like if Jason Tatum in a 5 out offense, that's the upside.
Yeah,
we've seen that with Horford. We have seen it with Horford. We haven't seen it with Porzingis is a different beast. I get it. But it is a bet. And it's not a bet that I don't think the Knicks can make a turn against them. It's not a bet that I don't think Milwaukee make a turn against them. And the last thing is, let's be real. They lost the Heat, but Milwaukee's the team they have to worry about. When you traded Marcus Smart, right? But when you traded Marcus Smart, and it's just like, the NFC East, teams start loading. The Eagles draft Devontae Smith, they get AJ Brown. Other teams start stocking up on corners and pass rushers, right? So that is, in some way, it had to be a reactionary move that, they just added arguably the second best point guard in the league. No offense to Jalen Brunson or Emmanuel Quickly, but I think Dame is still the second best point guard. I think it was a defensive move there too. It's like if your biggest rival gets gets Justin Jefferson or something like that, then you go get the best corner on the market, right? Sauce Gardner when he's not holding or perceived to be holding by people who like Kansas City. But yeah. So I think that's what went into it. I'm not going to fault Boston on it. I'm also not. I'm as scared of Boston as I was last year, which is to say, yes, I would have probably picked them to beat the Knicks in a 7-game series. But I thought, in many ways, the Knicks had some advantages, and I think the Knicks, the things the Knicks like to do, they like to get on the glass. That'll still be available. They have a power forward who can draw doubles. That'll still be available. Can he make the right decisions? I don't know. I am a little bit worried because their offense still runs through their point guard, and now Boston has the best perimeter defense in the league. And yet the guy that just acquired last time Brunson played him, he gave him 44. And Miami has a great perimeter defense, and he was very effective. I'm not close. I'm not going to say Brunson is defensive proof, but he's close to that. So I still think
I don't think guys Jrue size are the ones that give him trouble.
Who gives him trouble?
It's like I think sometimes you can see like bigger athletic wings at times can get him, but even then, he generally I thought by the end of the Cavs series he had just figured it out. He's like, okay, I know what this guy's gonna do. I know how to get to my spots.
He also started taking pull-up threes. That's the best antidote, right? Because if the farther they have to come out and guard you, the less the length matters, right? So
right. And I think it was, I don't remember what his ad is anymore, but it's Azulo on Twitter. It doesn't work for KFS. He posted something about Boston can put out, I forgot the exact lineup. I want to say it's like Jrue, Brown, Tatum, Harford, Porzingis, and who is Brunson going to guard? And I'm like, I really think people are
who's Porzingis going to guard?
But one-on-one. I think these matchups actually they'll be tricky for both teams. But the thing that I find more interesting is so I got to pull up my own tweet here. But I just think the usage that you're talking about with these various guys is not easy to manage. Oh my God, where is it?
I saw that tweet. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just if you look at the tweets, if you look at the usage by year, okay, this is just their career usage. This is for Jrue, 23.6, Jaylen Brown, 26, Jason Tatum, 27.7. He's been at 31.9 the last 3 seasons. Jaylen Brown's been at 30.6 the last 3 seasons. Porzingis, 27. That is, even if I just use their career averages, that's basically 100 usage between 4 guys. If you wanted to use their usages from just last season, it would be above 100. And obviously, whether you start Derek White or out,
probably be that all of KP and Jalen and Jrue are going to take a step back. Probably none of them was in ideal situation usage wise, right?
they might not have been in an ideal situation usage-wise, but like you got Porzingis because he is a dynamic scorer. That's like part of the reason they got him is that he can. What did he put up last year? 23 and 8, whatever the hell it was.
Yeah, but
He
it's
can push
also
the floor.
I mean, there's a lot of
And
guys who put up 23
and
and 8, but he's
but we,
7'3" and can shoot and can
right,
draw
but
the
we
big
know he
out.
doesn't want to do that. We know he doesn't want to do that. He did
Because
not like that role.
he was humbled, it seemed like, after his Dallas experience and trying to make that.
No. He
Okay,
was not. He
that's fair.
didn't. He liked Washington because he was able to do more. They gave him the ball more. He was able to, and he showed off. He has a lot more than he can do. A lot more than just be a pick and pop guy. Like you're gonna now tell him, oh, by the way, you just need to space the floor for us. It's not gonna work like that. It's not gonna work like that.
I mean, I think there'll be some movement shooting, some of the pin
Right,
downs, and those kind of
this is
things.
all
But
false stuff.
I mean, do you really want him isoing? I don't think
He was good at ISO last year. That's not my. It doesn't matter what I want. It doesn't matter what I want. Okay, I would like if none of these guys were on Boston. That's what I want. But like, what he wants is not just this off-ball spacer type role. He wants to be on the ball. He wants to be more of a creator. We know this because this was his whole issue in Dallas. Jrue Holiday, like
a version of him that was younger, but sure.
Yeah, but I mean, it was, but like he was suddenly very happy in Washington last year. Like that was last year. What changed? His fucking role changed. He got more. He got more
mature. I mean, if you look at the things he said about the Knicks and all of that, like he had a lot of remorse for how he acted when he was younger.
I think the line between maturity and usage is pretty interesting for him. And then I think Jrue, like, yeah, you can tell me that he's going to take a step back.
88th percentile in ISO, so you're correct. 1.15 points per possession, only one possession a game, but yeah.
And his post-up numbers were good too last year. But like, and Jrue, if you look at Jrue, like, yeah, he can take a step back, I guess, but he's gonna be the nominal point guard, right? Like, I mean, okay, maybe they start Derek White. Him and Jrue can change, like they can both share point guard duties. But like, to me, this is not. It's not easy. This is not just going to be like guys blend together. I don't think any of these guys are particularly good passers. I know Jrue has good assist numbers, but I don't think I wouldn't.
Do you think he's a better passer than Brunson?
Maybe. Like I would say they're on the same level as passers. Like I don't think either of them is like, holy shit, how did he make that pass? Like, wow, how did he, like, what amazing vision. Like they make good functional reads and they can, like, the defense has collapsed, so I know this pass is open. Like they can make smart reads, but I don't think they're intuitively great passers or anything like that. And this Boston team last year, they sucked at passing. That was like one of their biggest weaknesses, and they were not a very good ball handling team. I still don't think they're a very good ball handling team. Like I don't trust Jrue at the end of games in crunch time. I still don't know why I should trust Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum at the end of games. Derek White is not going to be the one getting the ball at the end of games. Kristaps Porzingis sure shit isn't going to be the one I'm going to be like, hey, go get us a bucket right now,
what
champ.
about that game winner he hit against Charlotte that got called off?
Oh, I know. That was
that's a deep cut. I don't know.
That was sad. It should have counted. But I still don't think they act like the things that they sucked at were end of game, crunch time, half court offense. And like they did not fix that. That is, and ball handling, passing, whatever. That's still an issue for them. I think if anything, it might be more exacerbated.
Ball handler, and I think you'd be arguing, you'd be hoping that the sum of the parts is.
That's the bet. To me, it's not. This is not going to be like, wow, these guys fit together so seamlessly. I think it's going to be like, these guys don't necessarily fit together that seamlessly, but we have so much talent, it doesn't matter. Like that's the bet to me. That's not a bad bet. It's not an unreasonable bet. But like, I think the pieces, at least offensively anyway. I mean, like, actually this does need to be said. Jrue does bring a lot more. He brings their defense back to a place where I thought their defense after the Smart trade was like, I did not like that. I was like, I don't know what's going on here.
So you don't think it was a smart trade?
Yeah, I don't. No, but like getting Brogdon out, right? So you're basically replacing Brogdon in the guard rotation with Jrue. I think that's a huge, huge upgrade for them. And then the part that I just don't know is like, and this is what makes this team so hard to judge, is like they basically have two guys that can play the big positions that are actually big. Like Tatum can play the 4, but I don't think he's a 4. Like he can play small ball for. He can give you moments in that lineup when we've seen him do that, and he's pretty good in moments. But like, I don't want to do that for a whole season, obviously. And maybe that's what they're gonna do. Maybe they're gonna do the thing of like how we're gonna have RJ and Hart be like the backup four. Maybe Tatum will just be backup four. But I think this team is really weak on the glass now. And Horford is old, man. He can fall off a cliff at some point. And KP is injury prone. And like on nights where one of those guys is missing, what the hell does your big man rotation look like? I don't know. I feel like the depth they had last year.
Gabriel, Nemus, Quieta, Kita.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. Maybe the talent will just overwhelm, but I'm less bullish on this team than a lot of people. And I just kind of think they did a lot, and on paper it seems fine, but it just I don't know. This team just feels weaker to me. It feels a lot more top heavy, and again, it's not just Horford now. Like they've just gotten older. Like right, like you've added Jrue now, and Horford is still there, and it's like you traded out Rob Williams, and I know Smart wasn't like super young, but he's younger than Jrue. Grant Williams is gone, and like it sounds stupid to like bring this up so much, but like Grant Williams, like what? He's like 24 or something. Like he's a pretty young player. Who gave them good minutes over the last couple of years, and then Robert Williams is gone now. Like so, your team got a lot older. That's not bad if you win the championship. Like they definitely have a window here. Is it guaranteed? I don't know. I still feel like that front court to me just feels like very, very thin. And we've seen like Steph win championships with super thin front courts, but other than that, recently I feel like the front courts we have seen have been really good, strong. They've either had like
Miami didn't have much besides Bam, depending on your opinion of Kevin Love.
Right, but Bam's a star. Bam's like a legit star big. I mean, if you think Porzingis is that, then okay, fair enough. I don't think Porzingis is
even
if
if he plays 45 games a year,
right?
That's tough.
Right, and to your point, like even Denver, right? It's not like their front court was super like so much depth, but aside from Jokic, like they still had like Gordon, who's been a really good player for them. But like, and Jokic is Jokic, like that's you know what I mean? Like that's its own different level.
Star, that is the star, right? So
right, and then like the year before that, obviously that's the Steph one where I'm like, okay, well, like you want to say Draymond, sure, but like their front court is not like a huge strength.
But Luke is a solid player. Wiggins can play the four pretty credibly, more credibly, I think, than Tatum, at least on defense. Or as a rebounder.
Right. So, but it wasn't like a loaded front court. But again, if you go back another year, though, it's Milwaukee, right? The year before that, it's the Lakers. The year before that, it's Toronto. Like it's been in the last few years since kind of like the KD Warriors went away. It's been teams that have had a star or stars or strong like depth in front court pieces. And I don't know. I wonder about that with the Celtics. I feel like it just feels like they're making a team for Joe Mazzulla because he can't like coach any other. Like he just seems really, really obsessed with the three ball, and I get that, but I don't know. I kind of feel like this team.
I think 5 out with Tatum and Brown, like they're probably will league in offense or be top 3. Is that an unfair?
I'm not worried about their regular season. They'll probably be amazing. Like I don't think that's going to be an issue.
And I think in the playoffs, I think their playoffs, they're still going to be really able to score. The bet is that we'll get bodied a little bit on the glass, but it's like the kind of inverse bet of the Cavs, where they said we have shitty perimeter defenders, but our offense is so good and we have enough rim protection to stomach it. Right. What they didn't count on is that they would face a team that was able to put them in a trash can on the glass. With the Celtics, what they're saying is, we'll probably lose some possession on the glass, but KP's a little underrated there, and we do get rim protection. And it's just going to be such hell for teams to get into the paint. And even if they do, if they're kicking out or anytime they have to do anything but ISO, we have so many ball snatchers that it doesn't seem like it should be something you can say. So many steal artists, whatever you want to call it. We can generate a lot of fast break points there as well. That's where you're betting on, and I don't hate that bet. And I mean, I would put them with Milwaukee. I do think if the Knicks can play Tibbs's game, though, that's the thing. If the Knicks execute a good Tom Thibodeau game plan, which means not feeding Randall in the post incessantly. But don't turn the ball over. Find ways to get into like the painted area. Brunson can hit his shots there. You attack the offensive glass. Because I don't think this. I mean, do you think the Celtics team is built to run? That's another thing.
No.
As good as they are in offense, they're great at half court offense team. Like I think teams are not going to be like. It's not like they have anyone that's like KP isn't some amazing outlet passer. If there was Jrue, they're not like they don't have.
They're not a good passing team. Like they were not a good. They were. I think they might have been last in assist rate last year, or pretty close. From it was us and them. But like they're not a good passing team. I don't think they. Nothing about their collective moves makes me believe they became a better passing team. And you're right. They're definitely slower. Like there's no way you can tell me they're not. Like they're less athletic. They're slower.
Right. So
I think they have.
You're not worried about them
versatility.
pushing. If you're not worried about them pushing, you're going to attack the glass even more. And it comes down to how much can that equation work for these teams. I think KP's rim protection changes that a little bit. Like if you're operating a lot from the short mid range or trying to get those shots, they can defend the rim and they can defend the 3-point line. That's no joke. And they can stay with you. But I do think, like the Knicks have a way to win that series. And I think on defense it becomes tough because you have to play 5 out. Like taking Mitchell Robinson away from the rim is not something they want to do. I think he actually adjusted pretty well to it later in the year. I think Tibbs gave him more freedom. But this is not
we played Boston and Washington later in the year.
Yeah, but we didn't play Boston. I mean, Horford, they go 5 out, but it's not the same, right? So
yeah, we played Washington without him or with him. And
yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying he's perfect. Yeah, I'm not saying it's perfect, but like, look, I don't give a shit. I think the 5 out thing
is more like you have to worry about Brown and Tatum.
But I think the 5 out thing with Boston is so fucking overvalued. It's so overvalued. Like, if they're starting Horford, who fucking cares if Horford is the 4 or the 5 in that lineup? Like, really? That fucking matters then? Who's the 4 or the 5? Like, if he's playing...
You can't just leave Mitch in the paint, which is what we like to do, right? That's for the Knicks specifically.
I would leave fucking Al Horford wide open all day. Let that fucking loser-ass piece of shit hit fucking 15 threes. Go for it, champ. Go for it. Like... and they've had great spacing. This is my entire thing. They've had great spacing. And you can tell me the spacing will be even better. Your spacing was already great. Your spacing was already fucking great. How much better is it going to get? And even if it is better, how much is that materially moving the baseline for an offense that was already fucking really good last year? Like their offense, they have micro things that needed to be fixed. Micro things. Not the macro of the offense is fine. Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little 3-point happy, right? Okay. So what would you want to add to that to give it a little more diversity?
You know what
I would? No, actually, we should get less. We should do less rim pressure, and we should actually trade our best passing point guard, who also happened to be a low usage guy, which made perfect sense next to Tatum and Brown because both those guys want to be fucking LeBron James and Dwayne Wade.
Right?
Smart shot better in the fucking playoffs last 2 years than Jrue Holiday
in the playoffs, but overall,
but that's what matters for them. That's what matters for them. I do not give a shit about Jrue Holiday. Will be a monster in the regular season. I would be shocked if he's not. And then he's going to go to the playoffs, and that's all that matters. It does not matter for them that he's good in the playoffs. That's not. They're not in our position where we're like, we just still need to like keep establishing ourselves and hopefully win a playoff round or whatever. No, they have got to compete for a championship. They got to win a fucking championship for being real. So like Jrue Holiday cannot go to the playoffs and be worse than Marcus Smart. And guess what? For the last 3 years, he has been worse than Marcus Smart in the playoffs. That is a fact. Like his shooting has been way worse. And that's playing off of Giannis. So it's not like he's been playing, off of like, I don't fucking know, CJ McCollum or some shit. Like he's playing off of the best or second best player in the league who has a shit ton of gravity, who commands that like 5 defenders crashing the paint down on him all the time. So like, and it's this whole thing of like, well, he's not going to have to do as much ball handling. Why are we acting like Jrue Holiday? They didn't even, the year they won the title, who was doing the ball handling when it mattered? Wasn't fucking Jrue. It wasn't Jrue. It was Middleton. It was Middleton and Giannis running pick and rolls. So like, I'm so sick and tired of hearing about like, oh, well, Jrue's going to be in a different role. What fucking role has he been in that's different? He's been playing off the best player in the fucking league. Okay, like
Now he's
I'm
playing off
sorry.
of 2 or multiple ball handlers, right? Like 3 other guys who
Is
can score.
Jaylen Brown a ball handler? Are we sure? Because last I saw in the
No, sorry,
playoffs,
ball handler is the wrong word, but like somebody who
I know
can
what you're saying.
create, somebody who can create.
I get that, but like I don't. I think the gap between what Giannis is and like those two guys collectively, like I think
Well,
there's
it's 3. I mean, because by your own admission, KP is probably going to be allowed to do some more of that stuff as well, right? So it is. I mean, those
yes.
3 they have. I think I would argue that Middleton and Giannis are both better than KP and Brown, but you have them plus Tatum, right? It's
Right, but I'm fine with that.
you
My
still
my
could put
point.
Giannis over all 3 of those guys. I mean,
No,
well,
it's
obviously
not,
I would too, but it's like the overall the sum of those is not enough to
yeah.
stem that.
Let's even say that's a draw though. Let's say it's a draw. Let's even say Boston edges it. Like he still was not good. Like he was playing with Giannis
Not in
and
the
Middleton
playoffs.
before Middleton got hurt, and he was not good. He was bad on offense.
So what do
He was
you
really good on
attribute
defense.
his offensive struggles to, from like a eye
Sometimes
test?
I don't know. I
What do you think he's
just
slow or slow?
I
Sorry,
don't think he makes
physically.
good decisions. I think he's a bad decision maker, and that gets heightened in the playoffs. That's what I think. Like I always see him driving into the dumbest places in the world, and I'm like, why are you doing that right now? Like he'll just drive into a crowded paint. I'm like, what is the point of this? Like, what are you trying to do? I don't think he's a good decision maker, and this is my like. I don't think Jaylen Brown's a good decision maker. I would say Jason Tatum has improved his decision making, but it's still like not the strongest component of his game. He's young.
But he's
He
like a
could get
plus
better.
decision. Like he's miles ahead of Randall, obviously. Right? So
Yeah.
it's not like
He's
we're not talking about that.
that's the
He's a good
comparison,
decision
sure.
maker.
And I don't think Porzingis is a bad decision maker, but I'm not going to be like,
We haven't seen much
you
of it in the
know,
playoffs, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah, he's not been really under any pressure for the last couple of years. So like, let's see what it looks like. Um, I don't know. I think Boston's going to be awesome in the regular season. I still have my doubts when it comes to the playoffs. I'm sorry. I just don't think a team that's like solution to ball handling is Derek White and Jrue Holiday together. I've seen
Yeah,
enough,
but the
man.
East
Like,
kind of sucks, dude. Like who's Milwaukee? That's it. I mean, us. I mean, would you take us over in a 7-game series over them?
no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't
I
right
think we have
now.
a good
But I also
chance.
think like
Yeah.
I think there's a chance, like again, this is the part you never know. And this is why to me it makes sense to keep your assets open, is like guys can come available. Things could become available that change your trajectory or give you a different possibility. And so like as currently constructed, no, they're better than us. I think so, barring injury. But the injury component is like part of this evaluation, right? Like they have a lot more injury risk than Knicks. So to me, that's like I don't know exactly how to gauge that. And this is what makes Boston to me very fascinating and very difficult to discuss, because it's like the talent on paper is great. It's phenomenal. But like how do those pieces necessarily fit? More importantly, like the Porzingis and Horford stuff is just really weird to me. I don't know. I mean, in some ways I will say though, well, two things. I think Boston deserves credit for like I don't agree that like necessarily with the moves they have made as being like this is the things they needed to do to put them over the top. But I think they deserve credit for like taking risk. Like they took real risks this offseason. And whether I agree in the evaluation of what those risks were, I think they deserve credit for at least understanding that and then being bold enough to execute and take those risks. You know, like I think that deserves credit. And I also think they deserve credit for just like, you know, I think it's easy to be like, well, we were on the cusp. We were on the cusp. We were on the cusp. It's bad luck. It's this thing. It's that thing. I think it's like somewhat. It's almost like a very honest view of oneself, and I agree with it. Like, I don't think they could just keep running it back. I'm not sure about the moves they made.
Well, I think Brogdon wanted out. I don't know what happened with Grant Williams, but he may have wanted out, right? And I think
no. I think the Grant
Porzingis was
Williams
just a value move. Porzingis was just like we can turn Grant Williams into that.
Well, it wasn't
Brogdon
Grant
again.
Williams, right?
What?
It was smart. It was smart and whatever the hell. I mean, I forget the exact whatever the hell it was. But they also got a first round pick in that trade, or 2 first round picks in that trade. It was a weird trade. It's like a weird thing. But no, I think the Porzingis thing was more of like I think the Grant Williams one, they didn't want to go above the second apron, or at least not for Grant Williams, because I think now they'll be past second apron. But I think it was like because it's Grant Williams, they didn't want to do it. So I kind of get that, but like, yeah, like, I don't know. I think that they just looked at this team and were like, we aren't good enough. We need to do something different. I personally, again, I've said this all summer, like, I think they should have found a way to trade for Dame. And as we have seen now, surprise, surprise, Damian Lillard actually will report to a team that's really good that trades for him. Big fucking shock.
But
like, I think
they got. I mean, Portland got Robert Williams. How many first round picks did they send for
Three.
Jrue? 3 first round picks for Jrue.
They sent 2 for Jrue. They sent, yeah.
But wouldn't they have sent like a lot more for Tyler Hero? I mean, they could have gotten like up. They could have gotten like 15 first round picks, and they could have gotten Tatum. You know, if they got Tyler Hero, and instead they just got Robert Williams and 2 first round picks. So, you know, it's shameful how, you know, just to spite Dame, Portland made a worse trade for their future.
I mean, I don't know. I just yes, I know. I just think that I'm over the Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum thing. I think they're gonna keep shuffling pieces around these guys, and I think
that is kind of a hot take because people have said that about Dame and CJ for years, and we're seeing the final embers of that. Do you think this just isn't gonna work?
I just don't. I still think those two are going to be the central components of your offense. They're going to be the 2 highest usage guys,
and that just cannot work under any circumstance.
I just don't believe that either of them is a good enough ball handler to justify that.
Not even Tatum?
For a number 1, no. Like, he's not. No,
would you
he's
take
not a number
Tatum
1
over Booker as your number 1 ball handler? You wouldn't?
No, Booker's like a fucking different planet as a ball handler, shot creator to me. Like, I just don't think that's close. I think, like, if you want to say Tatum's a better player, sure.
I think I'm blurring the line a little bit between the number 1 option and ball handler thing there, but I still like. Like Tatum.
Well, people. I mean, you might just view it differently. Like, to me, so I'll put it like Kawhi was a number 1 option when Toronto won the championship, but I don't think he was the lead initiator.
That's fair. Yeah.
So like, so I think Tatum. I don't fully believe in him as the number 1 guy yet, anyway, on a championship team. But I think with the right initiator, I would believe it more. I don't.
And you just think Brown will never be that, and you can never add that guy as long as you have Brown next to Tatum.
I think you needed to take Brown, take him out. If you took out Brown, right? This is the trade I was suggesting at the time. Was like Brown and whatever salary to Houston, get that. What do they have? The 4th pick. Try and get the 4th pick for that. Send that to Portland with whatever other shit for Dame. Dame comes in. Dame, Tatum, Porzingis, with like whatever else you have left, and Smart's still there. Like I would have been like, that team to me is the favorite. I would feel very like strong.
Well, there is another primary ball handler.
Well, I guess they technically are the favorite now. Maybe I don't know what the odds are right now. I haven't looked.
I think it's so flat, right? It's tough for anyone to differentiate themselves. I think they have to consider themselves in that conversation. There is another primary ball handler on the market who's been to the Western Conference Finals. He's one of your favorite players of all time. Would you do a Jaylen Brown for James Harden trade?
No, absolutely not.
You would have traded him for Lillard, but not for Harden. I mean, I get it. There's a vast gap. But if that's like the thing that Tatum needs if you had Tatum and Harden next to each other, like forgetting everything else, like that is the kind of ball handler you're thinking about a little bit, right? Harden, like the guy you need next to Tatum.
I just don't believe in Harden. Like I don't even care about like what he like. I just don't believe in him. I'm never trading for him on any team I was running. I would never. I would like if I was consulted for any team and they were like, "What do you think about James Harden?" I'd be like, "Definitely don't trade for him. Don't do it. Like it doesn't matter what your situation is. It doesn't matter what you have to give up. It doesn't matter if he promises he'll never demand a trade again and will never go to the strip club. And I don't care. Just don't trade for him. Like that guy is never going to win because he's never going to be happy. Because I have no idea what the fuck he wants. What does he want? What is he unhappy about in Philly?
Some people go about in pity for themselves, and all the while,
like he seems like. I mean, to me, he's upset that he's lost money, and it's like, yeah, well, dude, maybe you should have a fucking agent. Maybe that would help your career and help in inform your career decisions monetarily.
But from a basketball standpoint, is that the kind of player you think could be better next to Tatum than Jaylen Brown?
I mean, like a lead ball handler, yes, absolutely. Like a legitimate lead ball handler to me. And the thing that this is what I don't even know how to explain this properly, but like the way I think about it is like if you have two wings who are going to be as high usage as Tatum is and Brown is, and Brown, how high usage they're going to be, finding the level of initiator who is comfortable enough being like a 20 sub 20 usage guy, but still a good enough ball handler, passer, creator, and gives you plus value on defense. Like the guy that was going to come closest was probably Marcus Smart. Probably was. Like I don't know how many. Like there is no Kyle Lowry out there. I mean, there is Kyle Lowry, but he's not what Kyle Lowry once was. Like that guy is not out there. So to me, you have to take out Brown, add in a star ball handler who can be a high usage scorer and give you plus initiation. And that would have been the way I went about it. To me, this is like, and this is why I think the usage, when you add up all these guys' usage, that's why it concerns me. Because I'm like, you can keep telling me Jrue Holiday is going to take less shots and whatever, but like he's going to be on the fucking ball a lot. So how is he going to be the one sacrificing? I don't think he is in a fucking contract year. I don't know. I'd be surprised. Jaylen Brown's the one that just got paid. I'd be like, hey, dude, you got your money.
So is it fair to say out of the East you're picking Milwaukee?
No, I'm not. I have not settled on it yet. I'm definitely in like my hater Boston mode right now, so I could just be like selling them short. But I something about this is off to me. It feels like, again, I just can't get. To me, the usage thing is really weird. Like I don't know how that's going to work itself out. It worked in Golden State, right, when they added KD. Why? For two reasons. One, Steph is like the most versatile player in terms of how he can shift his usage. And then the other part is Draymond doesn't need the ball. Draymond doesn't give a fuck about the ball. He wants the ball only to pass it, right? He doesn't care about taking shots. So it worked because they could just be like, okay, you get all the Harrison Barnes usage, and then we're gonna like Iggy, you play like 75 less minutes a game. And Clay and Steph they can shift their usage to be more off ball and give KD more time on the rock. Like, I don't think that works. That it's very rare that it works like that. And so, like, Jrue Holiday is not going to be running around off pin downs, having like defenses scramble all over the place. Like, oh my God, Jrue Holiday. Like, that's not going to happen. Jason Tatum's not going to be doing that shit. Jaylen Brown's not going to be doing that shit. Like, you can run staggers and like, again, pin downs and stuff for like, you can run individual sets for these guys, but it'll never be in the capacity where it's like this free flowing thing the way it was for Golden State. And that, a lot of that is just like, yes, we can say Kerr as a coach, but like also just the skill set available to him and the versatility of those shooters. Like, it made it possible. These guys they're not in the same fucking planet as Steph or KD or Clay as shooters for that matter. Like, they're not even playing the same fucking sport. So I think people consistently don't properly value not just what your usage is, but how you derive your usage. And like that to me is like, that's the reason why I really think Booker is really underrated. And I think that's why he's worked pretty seamlessly next to like anybody they've played him with, because if you need him to be more on ball, he can do it. If you need him to be more off ball, he can do it. Like, he's really versatile with how he scores. And it's also a reason why I've like always thought Kobe's an underrated kind of team player. Even Jordan, like I think those guys are fundamentally misunderstood for what made them, like why they were able to win so much and why they were able to play so effectively with other great players, because they were well-rounded off the ball. This isn't to say Tatum, by the way, I'm not saying Tatum and Brown and Porzingis and Jrue, these guys can't play off ball, but they're just not as versatile with their off ball usage. Like, cool, you can hit spot ups. What else can you do? Like, what else can you do off the ball? Are we going to see Tatum and Brown running around setting screens for Jrue and like all this type of stuff? Like, I don't know. Maybe. Is Porzingis going to make contact on screens nowadays? Like, is that a thing that's going to happen? I don't know. Like, there's just a lot of variables that I maybe just feel differently than other people. But yeah, I think like if you put a gun to my head and you're like, who's going to come out of the East? I would probably say Milwaukee. Like, we've never seen, and we haven't even talked about this, but like we've never seen Dame play with anybody close to Giannis, and quite frankly, we've never seen
Aldridge
Giannis
would
play
be
with
the
some.
closest.
Yeah, which is like, come on, like
Well, it's a top 10 player versus an MVP, right? At
I
his
don't even
peak,
think
Aldridge.
I'm not even sure Aldridge is top 10 at his peak. Everything he was obviously really good, but top 15 to like MVP is completely different. And then Giannis has never played with anybody, at least offensively, as dynamic as Lillard. And then the beauty of it for Milwaukee to me is like they didn't get older. They were already old. They stayed old. Jrue and Dame are basically the same age. So like I think you just take the two guys that are the two best players. And like I do think I don't know. I do like it's weird. Like Tatum is probably a better player than Lillard, but as far as just like pure offensive talent, Dame is fucking on a like his scoring package is crazy. Now I did see friend of the pod, Chuck of Chucking Darts. He was mentioning, like Dame's numbers past round one of the playoffs have not been good. I think that's a fair point. I also think it's fair to mention that sample size is not huge.
Jrue's also
And
locked him up in the playoffs.
yeah, Jrue put him in hell. Jrue also had 80 behind him in that series.
So now
I'm not sure.
he'll have Tatum, who's a good defender. Porzingis is
Yeah,
not AD, but a pretty solid rim protector. So it's not like he won't have help now.
no, he'll have help, but I really think that AD was like he's probably like what is he? He's one of the three best defenders in the league. I think it's like him.
I think when healthy, he is the best defender in the league. But yeah,
Yeah, I think so too.
it's him, Giannis, and Bam. That's my opinion.
I would say Draymond. I think Giannis has really dipped off defensively the last couple of years, which is another reason why I'm excited for this trade because he's going to have to do less kind of creation, volume scoring, and I think he'll be a lot. He doesn't have an excuse now for like, why are you being late? Like you're gigantic. Go get more steals and blocks. He can't like lays off on that stuff. But again, like to me, like give me the MVP with like the 3-level nuclear scorer he's never played with. Jrue, as good as he is, and he is good as much as I've shown him on this pod, he's nowhere near the offensive player Dame is. And we don't know what that ceiling looks like because we've never seen it. I'll just bet on that. Like, I think it's worth betting on. And, we can talk all day about like, well, Giannis has had good spacing and he has, but I think in the playoffs, like you see, like teams are daring Jrue to beat them. They're okay with Brook Lopez taking threes. It's different when it's Dame out there, man. Like that is a different thing. And I'm really I'm actually on it. Like as much as I've shit on Boston, I'm pretty excited to see both these teams next season or this season, I guess.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're a little bit higher in Milwaukee.
I just like this. I think the offensive ceiling could be crazy. Like we've never seen it. Like we've not seen Giannis play with a guy like this. We've never seen Dame play with anybody close to Giannis's level. Like generally speaking, in the history of the NBA, when you get two guys at that level that are like great talents, good shit tends to happen. Unless you're in Brooklyn. So like I don't know. I'm just very excited to see this team. I think they're going to be really good, which is not a hot take at all. What did you think of the Dame trade for them, though? I thought that was a great trade, obviously.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. He's an upgrade on Holiday. It comes down to, I think the people have been pouring a little bit of water on it. I think that it comes down to how important you think he was to their half-court defense. But there's no risks there that weren't like, yeah, you're risking you're risking the fact that you're old, and if Middleton doesn't come back, things get dicey. That was a risk before. So the real big risk is the downgrade from point of attack defense. And also, like, I'm not sure that there's a team in the East really that can threaten. Maybe, I mean, who in the East has the kind of pull-up shooter where, Brook likes to play drop, and that one of the luxuries that Jrue offered them was that his point of attack defense was good enough to allow Brook to play conservatively and drop. Who in the East is really nobody on Boston is doing that? Jrue, no.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like the thing they'll try to do is mismatch hunt Dame, which fine, but like,
but that's still not as effective as like really being able to attack out of what they can do with Dame. Honestly, that might be the best option for the Knicks, right? Is attack Dame and PNR. And if Brook is going to play drop, then kill him with Brunson. But Atlanta, I guess, can do that a little bit. But you have there's ways around that. So I think that was a no brainer for them, and I think the Drew trade is good for Boston too. I think Robert
Yeah,
Williams is a
I
big
think it makes
loss,
sense. They did, yeah. Like
but he's not
once
healthy.
you
Yeah,
yeah once you had like their guard situation and where it was with Brogdon, who apparently was like miserable, didn't want to be there anymore because he's a baby, um, and like with Derek White, like sure I like Derek White, but it did not feel it felt a little shaky, right? Like really, we're just trusting Peyton Pritchard to like I don't know. I think they needed a bit more. So yeah, it was a good there's no question. Like if you're grading the trade for Boston, it's whatever, like a B plus, A minus, A, whatever you want to give it. It's a good grade. But like I just I'm only evaluating it in terms of like, okay, the overall, like what are
yeah.
you
I mean,
trying to
I
do?
think I think what we both agree is that there's no reason for Knicks fans to be chicken littling over this. Why didn't we make a move? Dion Rose is asleep. It's like it doesn't work like. I mean, isn't it? Didn't we learn our lesson last year? Oh, this other team in the East got this great point guard, Donovan Mitchell. The Knicks now they're just sleeping, right? They signed Jalen Brunson, and then look what happened, right? So, I think that's really the I think that's where we agree. Kind of moving on to media day. Did you have so today was media day? Did you have any takeaways from the Knicks media day?
Um,
Or anything you want to highlight?
I thought I thought it was like a little bit interesting that they had Brunson, RJ, and Randall come out together, like that. I don't know. I thought that was interesting. I don't. I want to be very clear. I am not suggesting there's some like something behind that. I'm just saying I thought it was interesting those three came out together. I thought it was cool that like what RJ said. I mean, whether he was just putting out a nice like you know soundbite for people, but he said so. I forgot exactly what the word quote was, but he said something like, "It's I've only played with Julius Randle in the NBA. That's pretty cool." Like it was nice to see both those guys kind of like weirdly like bromancing during the press conference. Vibe seemed good. Julius looks apparently is very healthy, and he looked like he's in good shape. RJ looked he's in good shape. So, on that level, I thought that's the only thing. I did really like Tibbs' quote when he was asked about Evan Fournier. Thought his answer was fucking excellent. Um, he basically was like, "Yeah, I have respect for him, but 37 and 22 after the lineup change and a plus net rating is pretty good." Or I think he said it's pretty hard to
Yeah,
argue with,
that was
which is
interesting.
yeah. No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I think that was it was a very diplomatic way for Tibbs to put it, right? It's like
Yeah.
this is yeah, I get why he's frustrated. I respect him, but you know, it wasn't because I don't like him. It's just what it is. I think it was interesting that he said that Grimes is going to start too, and I think you tweeted about it too. But like, can we just put to bed the idea that he's going to like everyone's been saying DiVincenzo is going to block Grimes' development or Hart's going to block his development. They gave these guys big contracts. Are you worried about that at all? And does Tibbs' answer change anything for you?
Um, no, I thought Tibbs' answers were like good across the board, and yeah, look, he cleared up the Grimes thing. I think he got asked. I don't know what the exact question was about DiVincenzo, but he basically was like, he's a versatile piece. We like him on the ball. Like this is you've got to discern that like Tibbs says things, and a lot of times they're just token answers. But like even in his token answers, there are kernels of truth. Like he basically was like, I like Dante, on ball, off ball, whatever. So he said that same thing about Quickly, and like I don't think he sees them as the same player, but the way he talked about it, it sounds like he sees them as like guys that can be very complementary of each other on the court. And I agree with that. Like I thought, look, judging media day is always stupid to me because it's like, who cares? They're just saying stupid words. I know press conferences are the most important thing ever, but yeah. But like, I did not have an issue with anything he said. I don't have an issue with anything anybody said, at least what was put out. Um, I thought Dante gave a good answer where he was like, I thought it was actually pretty nice. Where he's like, "Why'd you come here?" He's like, "Well, to win, because I like to win. I like to win games." I thought that was a nice answer because it kind of was like, "Oh wow, we're in a better place." He also gave a pretty interesting answer about like, this isn't just about like it can't just be about like the Nova Knicks. Like we're like a different group. We're like a group, a team, and we have to come together. I thought that was a nice answer. Um, our media day, all in all, very boring. Not many interesting quotes. They asked quickly about his extension. He gave a very token answer of like, I'm not even thinking about that. It's just between my agent and the Knicks. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm sure you're not thinking about potentially making $100 million in the next few days or something. Like, yeah. You're not thinking about that at all, dude. You're just let my agent handle
I mean,
it.
most of these guys are very polished, right? There's very few.
Yeah.
Honestly, the closest guy that has gone off script is Fournier, and that's only because he's like that's after a year of being a professional, right? So I mean, these guys stick to the script. That's just even Randall does too, right? So
Right. And so, like, I think the Knicks in general, I'm not saying they pick guys because of this, but I do think like that is a thing they value is guys that can just handle this stuff pretty like kind of without any hiccups or anything like that. Like obviously we know as Knicks fans, we've experienced many hiccups from players and coaches and executives in the media. So it was nice to just get through the day, and every quote I was just like, sure, great, fantastic, sounds fucking super boring and lame.
do you think Leon makes sure that they won't crack under questioning? Like he says, "Funny how, well, fucking clown, I'm here to amuse you." You think gives them the whole in their original interview?
Yes. Yeah. Have you ever seen Menace to Society?
Yes.
I imagine it's like the scene where he's like, "You fucked up. You see that right there? You fucked up."
Now you know fucked up, right?
No, so I look, the Knicks were not the only team that did media day. I gotta say that Toronto media day was a fucking shit show today. Did you catch this? Like, so apparently they asked Masai, like, I don't know what the exact question was. They asked him something about Pascal Siakam.
Only one team has ever been sued in history, by the way.
Yeah, that was a nice thing. He's like, oh, of course it was the one team. It's like, yeah, dude. Well, when you do stupid shit, that happens. But they asked him something about Pascal, and I think it might have been about Pascal getting extended because he's extension eligible, and apparently they've not talked at all. And he started off by just being like about how much he respects or appreciates Pascal, but then he said something like he basically was like, and he just went into this whole thing about like last year's team was selfish, and we need to evaluate how everybody performs this year before we do anything. And I'm like, dude, this is like, I don't know. I'm not the biggest Pascal Siakam fan, and I'm not going to pretend like NBA media does that I watch a lot of the Toronto Raptors because who the fuck would want to watch that ridiculous garbage product that they put out there the last couple of years? But like
Barnes is him.
Yeah, but Pascal is like, I think it's crazy to have said that in a press conference. I genuinely believe that's like an insane quote for a GM to give. I don't understand the purpose of it other than to almost like it felt like he was throwing him under the bus to save himself. That's what it felt like to me. And I think that's really shitty to do to a guy who helped you win a championship, who has, he was the 27th pick in his draft whenever he got picked. I think it was like 2014. He's exceeded all expectations.
He's helped your narrative that like we just develop every 6'9" guy into that kind of player. He's really the only big example of that, right?
I mean, they had a hot run there for a little bit, right? Where it was. I mean, not just saying like one type of guy, but they got OG late in the draft. They got Pascal late in the draft, and then they got Fred VanVleet undrafted. Like this is the thing. It's so weird to see how ridiculous Masai looks over the past couple of years. Because it's like, no, he actually like it's fun to make fun of him, but he actually was like a really good GM. And this last year, you're like, dude, and apparently there's a report came out that they're like OG and Pascal are likely to hit free agency, which I always expected in Pascal's case, because if they're not going to extend him right now, then why wouldn't he hit free agency? And I expected in OG's case too, because his extension is much less money than what he's likely to get. Like, Devin Vassell just signed a 5-year, $146 million extension today. OG Anunoby, his max extension right now is $4,117. There's no Sean Helley signing that. He's definitely hitting the market, which is another reason why I don't understand why they haven't traded him, because maybe they will just pay him to stay, but this seems like bad business for them either way. I really don't understand what they're doing, and I don't know. This is kind of why, like, if Masai didn't talk to the media, I wouldn't care. I don't think executives need to talk to the media. But guess what happens? When you choose to and you say stupid shit like this, you deserve to get criticized for it. And like I just thought everything he said today was really embarrassing and was basically just a glorified attempt to deflect criticism of himself onto others.
Yeah, it's just a shit show. I think there were other. Scotty said the feeling in the locker room, I think, wasn't great.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Masai
I
also
think that
gave this weird answer about Fred VanVleet where they were like, why didn't you trade him? And he's like, we wanted to like respect his wishes. And I'm like, who are you kidding? You Masai Ujiri, you wanted to respect his wishes? Like
well,
DeMar
maybe he
DeRozan
felt
was
bad
like,
about what he did to DeMar DeRozan.
yeah, like DeMar DeRozan would like to have a word about respecting players' wishes. I thought that was he was just talking out of his ass today, and I think this is like, I don't know. To me, I know it's bananas because they won a championship 4 years ago, was it? Right,
Yeah,
Lakers. Yeah. So, like, I think he deserves to be fired. I really do. Like, I don't know what he's doing. I don't understand.
He's not going to get fired because they've only just missed the playoffs this year. But yeah, I do agree that it's a.
Well, it's weird, right? Where like I constantly hear this thing, even after this Jrue thing, right? There was just like, oh, I don't know what Leon's plan is. What is the plan? When are they going to do the plan? And I'm like, the plan is not hard. Like their plan is be good and wait to trade for somebody who you feel actually
and see how good. Also, see how good you can get in the like. They haven't stagnated yet. Like everyone's like, oh. Meanwhile, other teams keep getting better, and then the Knicks keep doing the same thing year after year. It's like, hello, they didn't make the playoffs last year. This year, they made the second round. The year before that, they made the playoffs. So, like, the trend has been up. They have not stagnated. Now, if you want to say that the only jump that matters is championship, fine. But then don't act like it matters to get better incrementally if it doesn't guarantee you a championship, which is what the whole point we're making is, right? So, no, that is just people who really want attention or just to. I think people
just want like a dopamine rush from like trades is like half of the thing. And I think like this is so. I actually looked this up the other day because I think this is like pretty interesting. All right, so this was in 2020, 2021, the Knicks 10 most used players. Or we can just do 11 so that we get everybody here. 11 most used players by minutes. All right. Julius Randle, 26. He's 26 years old. RJ Barrett, 20 years old. Reggie Bullock, 29. Nerlens Noel, 26. Alfred Payton, 26. Alec Brooks, 29. Manuel Quickley, 21. Derrick Rose, 32. Todd Gibson, 35. Mitch, 22. Obi Toppin, 22. This past season, was Julius Randle, 28, RJ, 22, Brunson, 26, Quickley, 23, Grimes, 22, Hartenstein, 24, Mitchell Robinson, 24, Obi Toppin, 24, Jericho Sims, 24, Miles McBride, 22, and then Josh Hart, 27. That was last year. Like, they have effectively turned over the team in the most needed areas without compromising the overall age of the group. Like, that is a really, really good job. And they've become a much more competitive team, right? So, like, this isn't like, oh, well, we just got younger. No, we got younger, but we also got better. And I don't know what people want. And, like, either way, the point being is, you want to keep saying Leon doesn't have a plan? Fine. If you're an idiot and you just can't figure out what the plan is, more power to you. Or less power to you, hopefully. But, like, I actually don't understand what Toronto's plan is because you've let Fred VanVleet. Like, are you trying to win now? Because if you're trying to win now, then why? Which is what the Jakob Poeltl trade would indicate, and the fact that you extended him, obviously, too. Why would you let Fred VanVleet leave? Or at least, why would you not at least match the offer that he got? And if you don't want to compete, which actually makes sense. Like, why are these guys still there? Why is OG there? Why did you do the Jakob Poeltl trade? You know, and maybe you could have kept Siakam and retooled around him and Scotty Barnes. I don't really like that pairing, but maybe you could have done that. But like you kind of punted on that opportunity too, it feels like. And in the meantime, you're now 2 years into Scotty Barnes' rookie deal, so you've kind of burned his rookie deal, and you don't know what you're building towards or what you're building around. Like, I actually listened to I don't know if you listen to it. I listen to the Athletic NFL pod. They're really good. It's like Nate Tyson, Robert Mays. And they had like a huge segment today about how Pittsburgh is just like wasting time with Kenny Pickett. And it's not just Kenny Pickett. Like, it's like, hey, like you don't actually know if Kenny Pickett's good because you've promoted Matt Canada just because Matt Canada was like in your building. Like, not because he was good, just because he's in your building. And he's clearly not suited to be an offensive coordinator. And so, like, you could have moved on from him last offseason, but you didn't. And now you've started this season, your offense is terrible, and you have no idea what you're doing. And you're effectively now you're going to burn the second year of Kenny Pickett's rookie deal. And it was like it was a really good like conversation they had. And I kind of think that I think that was the main frustration, right, for a lot of us Knicks fans during that 2021-22 season, when Randall was like playing like shit and everything, and Tibbs is playing all these vets, all these minutes. And you're like, what the hell are we doing? Like, this makes no sense. And I just look at Toronto and I'm like, I don't understand anything you're doing. Like, OG's still there. Pascal's there. You're like not young. You're not really rebuilding, but the pieces, you don't have a guard. So you go get Dennis Schroeder, which like fine. I think Dennis Schroeder's a fine NBA player, but I don't think you're going anywhere with him. And he's not like he doesn't really fit any long-term vision you need to have. And I just don't really get the point of what they're doing. And it's like, then they did this whole thing, right? It's like, they're in for Dame. Okay, you're in for Dame. I don't really think that made sense because I don't think you can compete from where they were. But at least you trade for Dame, I'd be like, okay, well, now I guess you're competing. So that's what you're doing. Then they don't do that. Apparently there's reporting like that they didn't put OG in the trade, but then there was like, they did offer OG. And it's just like, I mean, look, whatever the reporting is, they can go both ways. But if you're rebuilding on Scotty Barnes, then just do it. Like, just move these guys for what value you can get and move on. But like, otherwise, again, like if you can't make that decision, then you should be fired. To me, like Masai should be fired based on kind of where that organization is and just how they've managed the last couple of years. And then the shit he said today was just so embarrassing.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird look. We'll see what comes of it. I think he's earned himself quite a bit there, so I understand why he's not getting fired. But it goes to show that, like, yeah, people, I mean, I'll just keep going back. I don't get just the rhetoric I see about the Knicks front office, and I'm not picking on, random. I'm picking on a lot of content creators as well. It's just kind of absurd. Yes, we get it. They picked Obi Toppin over Devin Vassell. We have to mention it 15,000 times.
Also, like Devin Vassell has not been like. Can we just talk about this? So he got 5 years, 146 million, which good to him. Shout out for him if he's listening to this podcast. I don't know why he would be doing that. I don't think that's a good deal for him. I don't know what he's done in the NBA to justify this contract. Is it like, as far as we're betting on a guy who has pieces of his game that are interesting and we think is about to take a leap? Sure. Like, if that's the logic, that's cool. But I just feel like I feel like I'm going crazy where everything I've seen is just universal praise for this move. And I'm like, what the fuck has Devin Vassell done in the NBA? What has he done? He's been like a middling efficiency scorer at best, although he did take a very significant usage leap this season. So maybe that's like they think there's more to come. I don't know.
And in pretty shitty context, right? So
in pretty shitty context. So maybe that's the part of it. But he's just,
and he had a big assist rate bump this year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and he's been a bad defender. He's been a bad defender. He's been
that's
the
most surprising thing. You're betting that his his defense from college is going to translate, because he was really a savant there, right? Or that's what kind of his projection was.
But it's weird though, because like we were talking about this in Discord earlier, but like sometimes shit just doesn't. We always feel like defense projects easier, but that's not always the case, right? Like there are guys
with Maxey, I think, for example, right?
Or Alfred Payton's probably the guy was like literally a defensive stopper in college.
I think with a wing, it's a little bit easier to project. I think it still takes time. Like even Anthony Davis's defense didn't project for a few seasons.
Yeah.
And he was a generational defense prospect. I think the bigger you are, the more of a safe bet it is, especially if you're just in a shitty context before. So I'm more confident in that with Vassell, but I do think it's a fair point. Like I do think that the cases where it doesn't translate tend to be guards, and it's because like the size.
Guard defense is a lot harder in the NBA.
Yeah.
But like I just think it's, and I get the context thing. It's just like if your big sell coming into the league was like, this guy is going to be a 3-and-D guy right away, it's very concerning to me when the defense does not translate through 3 years.
But
Like,
he's shown more as a creator, right? Like it's not just the usage and the efficiency; it's the fact that a lot of that is self-created.
Yeah, no, and I get that, but it's also like, okay, you did that on a team that basically was like the worst team. I forgot somebody. I think Squeege in our Discord. Shout out Squeege, our friend from the UK. He mentioned that in the Discord, like this Spurs team last year was the worst team by net rating since our very own lovely 2018-19 Knicks that won 17 games. And like, I'm not saying it means nothing what he did, but you put up a bunch of effectively meaningless numbers on a bad team that was, I don't want to say historically bad, but as bad as anybody's been in 5 or 6 years. That's what he did. So like, that's cool. And maybe with improved team context that changes. But if I'm making that type of outlay, I would probably have wanted more proof of concept. And it's also possible I'm underestimating how much the cap is jumping and what that contract's going to look like and blah, blah, blah. So maybe like Jeremy will hear me say this in a day, and or if he ever listens to this, and he'll be like, "You're an idiot, Shwin. The cap's going to go up this much, and this is a percentage of the cap that Vassell will be in." That's my Jeremy voice, and I'll look like an idiot. But I think it's like if that same guy with the same exact trajectory played for the Rockets and he got that contract, I think people would clown them, or at least they'd be like, "This feels like an overpay. This feels like a bit of an overpay." Oh, who's going to match? Who's going to give him that offer? Like I think the Spurs are getting a lot, like a major benefit of the doubt here.
Do you think he's a better player than RJ Barrett right now?
Not really. No.
I mean, it's kind of in the same range as his contract. That's what I'm getting at, right? So
yeah. It's and here's the thing: people have criticized the Knicks for giving him that contract, and criticized it at the time, and criticized.
I don't think either is a bad contract, but I do think in both cases you're betting on some improvement.
Yeah, you're betting on improvement, and that's all I'm saying. I'm not like, I don't think this is like, oh my god, this is like an albatross. They're not going to be able to trade worst contract in the league. I just think it's a bit of an overpay, and I think it's fine to say that. We don't need to pretend the Spurs.
We overpay all young players, right? I mean, that's what happens. Young players who show potential get overpaid.
Right.
Because somebody else is going to pay them. Like this, that's the reason we overpaid RJ, right? Or we paid RJ what we paid him.
And here's would you have paid him at that time, or now in retrospect? Honest question. Like, I don't know, but would you?
I think the contract looks pretty solid, and I still would bet on his.
I would too.
And if there was another young promising player who was up for extension, and even if he had a bad playoff series, but it's shown to be really impactful on both ends, a 37% 3-point shooter who takes a ton of pull-ups, and 3 years worth of high-end impact, I would probably also be willing to go a little bit higher and bet on improvement there too. Obviously, of course, that's completely hypothetical. That isn't a real thing for the Knicks right now, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually not very worried about Quickly's extension, even after like what Vassell got. I still think he's going to get an extension. I think the number will be, I think it'll be close to like the Brunson number, maybe, or the RJ number. Like all those three guys, right? Brunson, RJ, Randall are at the same number. I think it might be in that range, ballpark, whatever. Or maybe they'll go 5 years so that they can give him more overall, but it's less, less per year. I'm not too worried about that. I think he wants to stay a Knick. He seems pretty jacked up to be back, and they seem happy to have him. And I feel like the moves that were where you would like, I just can't see them not extending him and letting him hit restricted free agency next summer. And I think he wants the money. Like I would want the money too if I were him. I'd want to secure my future. So I think he'll get paid. And I think I'll be fine with that. I'll be happy with it. And I think the Knicks should do it because he's a really good player. He's a really impactful player who has helped them become a better team. And like, yeah, to the point about RJ, like I agree with you. I think RJ will improve. And I think he'll eventually, I think he'll be fine on that contract, especially as the cap.
I bet on Vassell improving too, I guess is my point.
Yeah, I would bet on it too. I'm just saying, like, we don't need to pretend everything the Spurs do. Like, I saw people being like, I really like this deal. What the fuck do you really like about this deal? Honestly, what do you like? I want to know how many people were sitting around watching the fucking Spurs last year, pissing themselves while they were losing games by like 25 points a night. Give me a fucking break. You were crunching Spurs tape, like the worst of the draft guys. Yeah, you were crunching Spurs tape while you were also watching Coastal Carolina that night.
The
Get
one
fuck
guy
out.
I'll say probably was chucking darts, but everyone
Yeah,
else
but I haven't even seen
and,
what his take.
and press probably. So
Yeah, I haven't even seen his takes on Vassell. I'm just saying if he has one.
no,
But like,
he's been in on Vassell. So is Prez. So those two
yeah,
guys, I'll trust them.
no, and I wanted the Knicks to draft Vassell. Right, this is my point is this. Right, I wanted the Knicks to draft Vassell. I thought they should have. That's what I said that on the record. I said it again today. I think it's okay to like not like, oh, the Knicks could have had this fucking two-way wing, and instead we took Obi Toppin. And it's like, okay, yeah, well, guess what? We got a better fucking wing than the year after. So what are we crying about right now? What are we upset about?
Ooh,
We're upset that
Grimes over Vassell. That's a spicy take. I'm not sure.
how is that spicy?
Should we go to the Darko DPM?
I've already done that. I posted it in the Discord. He is better. He is better. He has been impactful on a team that has proven itself capable of winning. And they won in part because of him. The season turned around when Quentin Grimes was inserted in the starting lineup. A starting lineup that had been non-functional with the other options available to them in terms of, at least the ones that Tibbs was going to start, in terms of Evan Fournier and Cam Reddish. And the other thing is this. We also know that starting lineup, when Josh Hart was in instead of Quentin Grimes, was also bad. Quentin Grimes is really good. Quentin Grimes makes that starting lineup actually a net positive lineup. And like, he's been I saw this man lock up Jimmy Butler on 1 foot on a critical end of game possession in a playoff game. I haven't seen Devin Vassell stop a fucking nosebleed in 3 years in the NBA. Like, I don't know how this is a debate. It's not a conversation. If you give Quentin Grimes,
people say his defense is better last year.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it was so much better last year. They were fucking 13 points worse.
Well, I think it helped him to be next to Sohan, and I mean, you're also betting that Wemby, Sohan, and
but he was next to Sohan last year. So why wasn't his defense?
Now he's next to what was on off last year? He's going to be next to Wemby and Sohan this year. Is kind of my point, but you know.
Yeah, so he can't have an impact unless he's in a perfect situation. Like, I'm sorry, like
you're getting
Quentin Grimes.
I do think it's probably the kind of thing where if he's surrounded by good players, they can unlock something different than most other players. But yeah, like I don't think that's it's an unfair.
His on court rating last year was -12.9. His on off was -4. So a garbage team was significantly worse with Devin Vassell on the floor last year. That doesn't mean everything. Okay, this does not mean everything. He was a net positive, slightly.
Yeah, I think those guys get hurt more because if you're a high usage starting lineup guy, you're going to look way worse because you're playing starters. Your bench is probably not as much worse than other good teams' benches.
Also, you're just playing a lot, so like that can hurt you naturally. But like I don't think this is controversial. Quentin Grimes has proven that he can be a valuable component of a legit playoff team that wins playoff series. Devin Vassell has proven he can put up numbers on the worst team since the 2018-19 Knicks. Congratulations. Alonzo Trier put up numbers too. Like, it's okay to we can value our own players and not.
Damn, that is tough, man. Alonzo Trier.
Yeah, he put up numbers. Good for him. Like, we can.
Devin Vassell's better than that. Come on.
Okay, fine. But like that, my point is that we don't need to like pretend that.
We don't have to pretend this is some amazing move. I'm saying that I'm still high
or that it's a like, okay, the Knicks missed on the 8th pick. What do you want them to nail? Like, if the standard is nail every fucking thing you do, then you look around the league. Look at every single team in the league. Tell me one team that has nailed every single decision they made. I want to know who that team is because I would love to learn what their secret is. Like, the fucking Warriors blew the number 2 pick overall. They completely blew that pick away, right? They've gotten little value out of Moses Moody, who I think is going to have a good year, by the way, this upcoming season. He was a 14th pick, and they've gotten no value out of Kuminga, who was the 7th pick. Like, I'm not saying those guys are doomed forever, but I'm saying it is hard to both be good and develop talent. And it's also hard to just get every decision right. It doesn't matter where you pick in the draft. People fail in the draft every year, even the most successful organizations. The fucking Spurs, look, we will hear endlessly that the Knicks took Obi Toppin. Guess what? Obi Toppin's in the NBA. All right. Well, I guess. Oh, sorry, my bad. Josh Primo is in the NBA now because the LA Clippers decided to give him a contract. The Spurs had to waive this fucking guy after one season, and that entire summer. I want people to remember this. I want people to really remember what they were doing. That offseason, there was all this little buzz coming out of San Antonio. Oh man, they really like Primo. They really like Primo. They might turn him to give him the keys. They really
And
like.
then when the brights were on, he got exposed or exposed
Yeah,
himself.
but like we make a joke out of it, but like he literally was allegedly accused of exposing himself to women. I think four different
Repeatedly,
times.
like it's a
Repeatedly.
bunch of times. Yeah.
Yeah, and that like that won't get brought up. That doesn't get brought up, and I'm not saying it needs to get brought up all the time. But like we also don't need to keep reliving the fact that the Knicks took Obi Toppin 8th, and he's no longer on the Knicks, and they trade him for a couple of second round picks. Like, give me a break, dude. Every team fucks shit up. It's not you're the point of you don't win championships because you're perfect. You win championships because you on aggregate get more right than wrong. And also you probably get lucky at some point in time. Like you don't win it just because you make perfect decisions. Go look at what like the Milwaukee Bucks. Go look at them. Go look at their draft picks aside from
Yeah, I mean,
Giannis over the last
think
10 years.
I think the point is though that like the point is so if Vassell or Halliburton turns into Giannis, like that's the thing. Like I agree with you. Like you have to look at the overall batting average, but the difference between that analogy is that the real big home runs have much more outlier impact, right?
Right, but
So
if
when,
they
even
hit
when the Knicks
but if
miss
we
on a
hit a
guy,
home run, but this front office has hit a home run. Like getting Brunson is a home run.
I'm talking about drafting a guy like Giannis. So
Right, but
my point is that if Vassell was Giannis, I would be pissed. If Halliburton, I thought was that kind of guy, an MVP level player, they have not missed on any of those guys yet, right?
well,
So, who Bane?
no. I mean, no, I'm agreeing with your point.
It's the same thing where it's like people cry about them trading the 11th pick. They could have taken if Jalen Duren turns into Shaq, fine. I will be pissed about that. It wasn't worth it. If Jalen Williams turns into the next Paul Pierce or something, fine. Without the shitting his pants parts, fine. But that's besides that. So I'm saying that's the only thing that would skew you hit your singles, you hit your doubles, you hit for average, but you miss out on the big that would be worrisome, right? If you're an investment firm, that's how you look at it. It's like it doesn't matter if you make a bunch of small wins, if you miss out on the big wins or if you have the big losses like that, a huge opportunity cost. There's been nothing like that for them. That hasn't happened in the last two drafts. So that's where like a lot of the hand rigging over that draft and the last draft where they traded, or not this draft, but the draft before where they traded out and they could have had Jalen Duren or even Jalen Williams, who I liked a lot. That's where a lot like you can give them credit for for batting a high batting average, or you can say like just take as many swings as possible, and then you have to admit that overall they've won. Or you can say that the only thing that matters is hitting a home run, but what home run have they missed? So there really aren't a whole lot of intelligent arguments against it at this point. I'm not saying being doing perfect, but they're B plus range. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I personally think I'd give them a higher grade. I just think they've done like
I would give B plus or A minus.
Yeah,
I think the Fournier trade wasn't great. They had to dump Alec Burks. Like I can come up with a bunch of things, but overall they're in a much better place. So I give it B plus. Like
to me, it's just like if you want to find things to be negative about, that's fine. Like you can do that. Like I can do that with the fucking Bills, and they're awesome. They've been awesome for like 5 years. And I can still remember like, well, 13 seconds sucked. And Josh Allen threw a bunch of interceptions last year for total ligament in his elbow and fucking this happened and that happened. Sure. But like on aggregate, do I want that? Like, do I actually think they're doing a bad job? No. Like, do you actually look at this team now from what they inherited to what they are now? And if you you really believe this is like, I've seen people say like, some decisions they made are like the worst thing ever, and they're stupid, they're incompetent, they don't know what they're doing, they don't have a plan, right? Like
Josh Hart and DiVincenzo, who will destroy Grimes' development. They've killed Grimes and Quickly's value. That's
it's just I don't understand this stuff, and like I don't know. I'm to me like again, if you want to be critical of like elements of their GMing and whatever, like I'm totally fine with that. I think like that's fair. I mean, we've talked about this endlessly. Like, I think there's a version of what they did last summer, where they could still have kept that pick, right, to take Jalen Williams, right? They could have probably figured something out.
They probably could
It's
have
not
kept
really
Burks too, right? If they hadn't signed Fournier, that solves a lot of those problems. So
right. So like they're not perfect, and we know that they've made fuck ups. But like I also think when they fuck up, they found pivots, and then they found a way to rectify.
and it's
their
kind of
fuck
a
ups.
bounded downside, right? It's not like the fuck up means that they lose the first overall pick in the draft or something, right? Or they lose
Right.
Ron Artest or whatever, like a past front offices. So
Right. So I don't know. I'm pretty. I just get really sick and tired of seeing the Obi thing because I'm like, I mean, it would be one thing if we took Obi and like Julius Randle didn't exist and he just sucked. That would be one thing. That would be like, wow, this is a catastrophic failure. I don't completely. I don't want to do the Obi debate, but like part of the debate is simply just that like he didn't play much, so you weren't going to get a lot of value for him. And part of the reason he didn't play much is because Julius Randle existed and Julius Randle had 2 All-NBA seasons. Like, and nobody could have predicted that, by the way. If anybody tells you they knew Julius Randle was about to be an All-NBA player, they are lying. They are
I think
fucking lying.
Tyrese knew.
No, Tyrese did not know. Tyrese wanted him to get traded before the 2020-21 season. Like nobody expected that. So come on. Like to me, it's like it's just shit posting for the fucking sake of it. Like, the Obi thing sucked. It sucked. It's over. Like we also don't need to cry about players that are worse than Quentin Grimes. Oh my god. We could have had like fucking Bones Highland. Who gives a shit
Herb
about Bones
Jones.
Highland?
Hey,
Yeah.
Bones is
Who
good.
cares about Bones Highland?
Herb
We could have
Jones.
had we could have had like fucking Herb Jones or Josh Christopher. Or like, dude, Josh
Lucas
Christopher's not even on the fucking,
Jokic.
yeah.
We can sign Josh Christopher. You know what happened to him today?
Yeah, he's not even
Not
on
an
an NBA
NBA
roster right now. Yeah, he's not on an NBA roster right now. So like the Knicks have done fine. They're in a good position. And I think like if you want to be upset about the Obi Toppin pick, go ahead and be upset about it. But they are not the first team to blow an 8th overall pick, and they will not be the last. Like go look at I bet you if you look at the 8th overall pick over the last 15 years, there's probably like 2 guys that actually went around to being legitimately good. I know
There
Franz
was
was
some team that took Frank Ntilikina over Donovan Mitchell, but other than that, yeah.
Like, I mean, again, the Warriors are this great organization. They took Jonathan Kuminga at 7, Franz Wagner went 8. You think they would want that one back? Yeah.
Why didn't they take Jordan Hill at 7 and let whoever they took at 7 go to 8?
Right.
That would have been a better bad pick.
I know. All right. I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No. That's kind of it from my end. Yeah.
All right. Stacy, let people know where they can find you and plug anything you'd like to plug.
Stacy Patton 89. I'll continue to plug all the work that Gigi and Matt Miranda are doing for the Liberty, covering the Liberty for the Strickland. The Liberty just booked their ticket to the WNBA Finals, where they'll meet the Las Vegas Aces. This is a pretty big deal. These are unequivocally the 2 best teams in the league, so it's going to be a heavyweight fight. And yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out the coverage, as well as like honestly, I just learned so much from Strictly NFL just from Con, and even though Con's a Giants fan, but from Con and Jeff. So it's a great pod as well. I'd plug that one as well, especially during football season.
Yeah, Strictly NFL is great. Definitely plug that. I will also echo Stacy's sentiments. Definitely check out all the work that Gigi and Matt are doing, following the Liberty's journey to hopefully bring a title back to New York, since New York has not had a title in a long time. Aside from that, I hope if any Dolphins fan is listening to this, that you're feeling okay today. It happens, but you guys.
It's a tough week for Miami, right? They missed out on Dame to the point where Jimmy Butler went full Ike Turner, and Ike Turner hair, and yeah, what 48-20 was that the final score?
Yeah, 48-20. Did not play the starters the last 7-8 minutes of the game. Pretty great.
That's both your football teams these days, right? So
I know. Yeah, Michigan's doing well too. So yeah, a good football weekend, and we'll see. Maybe the Giants fans will have something to root for after tonight. Anyway, that is our pod for today. Hope everybody enjoyed it. It is brought to you by Bet Online. Check them out. And again, everybody have a great week, and I will see you on Friday.